I never thought a single whisper could destroy 13 years of marriage. But when I heard those words, "Take it easy, baby," everything I believed about love, trust, and loyalty shattered in seconds. My name is Sarah Parker, and this is how I found out that the man I loved wasn't the man I thought he was. It was a regular Thursday night. The kind of night where everything feels normal, predictable until it isn't. I was making dinner, spaghetti and garlic bread, because it was Michael's favorite. We'd been married for 13 years, had 2 kids, and from the outside, we looked like the perfect couple. Everyone called us the Parkers, the picture of love, but deep down, something in me had been feeling off for months. He came home late more often, smiled less, and always kept his phone face down on the table. That night, he walked in at 9:30 p.m. with a fake smile and a half-hearted hug. He smelled faintly of a woman's perfume, sweet, expensive, unfamiliar. I asked, "Rough day?" He nodded, avoiding eye contact. I noticed a small smudge of lipstick near his collar, but when I pointed it out, he laughed it off. Must have been from a client's handshake. You know how those events are. I wanted to believe him, I really did, because believing him meant keeping my world intact. The next few weeks, things got stranger. Late night calls he'd answer in the garage, sudden business trips, and the way he started locking his phone. I wasn't the type to snoop, but love mixed with suspicion can make you someone you don't recognize. One night, after he fell asleep, I picked up his phone. It was locked, but fate, or maybe truth, was on my side. A notification popped up on the screen. It was from Rachel. The message read, "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about it." My heart stopped. I sat there, shaking, reading those words over and over. He stirred in his sleep and murmured, "Take it easy, baby." My blood ran cold. That whisper, the same one he used to say to me, was now meant for someone else. The next morning, I couldn't even look at him. He smiled at me, kissed my forehead like nothing was wrong, and left for work. I spent the entire day torn between rage and heartbreak. I needed to know who Rachel was. So, I did what I'd never imagined doing. I followed him. That evening, he said he had a late meeting downtown. I waited 10 minutes, grabbed my car keys, and drove after him. He stopped at a small cafe on the corner of Jefferson and Maple. I parked across the street and watched as a tall brunette in a red coat walked up to him. She hugged him, not a friendly hug, but one that lasted too long. He smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years. I took out my phone, snapped a few pictures, and felt something inside me break. For 2 weeks, I said nothing. I needed proof, not just for myself but for closure. I checked his phone when he wasn't around, read messages that made my stomach turn. "Miss you already. Can't wait to feel you again. Last night was worth the risk." My husband, my Michael, the man who once swore he'd never hurt me, had been lying to me for months. Then one evening, he came home unusually early. His phone buzzed and instinctively, he grabbed it, ran upstairs, and locked himself in the bathroom. That's when I knew it was time to end this charade. I waited until he came out, sat on the bed, and calmly said, "Who's Rachel?" He froze. His eyes widened like a guilty child caught stealing candy. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. I showed him the photos, the messages, the whisper that had burned into my memory. He sat down, head in his hands, silent for what felt like an eternity. Then he whispered, "It wasn't supposed to go this far." That's when I lost it. 13 years, 2 kids, a home we built together, and it wasn't supposed to go this far? He confessed he met Rachel during a work conference in Dallas. "She made me feel young again," he said, like I wasn't invisible anymore. His words cut deeper than any lie could. So that's what I was now, invisible. For days, we barely spoke. He slept in the guest room, and I spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering how something so solid could crumble so fast. I thought about leaving, about how I'd start over, about explaining to our kids why their father wasn't home anymore. Then one night, he knocked on my door and said, "Sarah, please." I ended it. "I can't lose you." His eyes were red, his voice breaking. But trust, once broken, doesn't rebuild overnight. I asked him one question: "Did you love her?" He looked down, silent. That silence was my answer. The next morning, I packed a small bag and left, not forever but for myself. I stayed with my sister for a while. The first few days were unbearable. Every sound, every memory haunted me. But slowly, I began to breathe again. I started therapy, began journaling, and even joined a support group for women who'd faced betrayal. Listening to others helped me realize I wasn't alone. Weeks later, Michael tried to make amends. He sent flowers, long texts, even showed up outside the house once. But I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. Love isn't about grand gestures, it's about respect, honesty, and presence. And he had broken all three. One evening, I went back home to gather a few things. The house was quiet. Our family pictures were still on the wall, smiling faces frozen in time. As I looked around, I realized something powerful. I was stronger than I'd ever been. The woman who once begged for answers had found peace in her own silence. Before leaving, I placed my wedding ring on the kitchen counter, the same counter where I once believed our love was unbreakable. Then, as I stepped out the door, I whispered to myself, "Take it easy, baby." But this time, it wasn't a plea. It was freedom. Months later, I rebuilt my life. I found a new job, made new friends, and for the first time in years, I smiled without pretending. Sometimes people ask me if I ever forgave him. The truth? I forgave him for my peace, not for his redemption. Because forgiveness isn't about forgetting, it's about reclaiming your power. And that whisper, the one that once broke me, became the start of a new story. My story,